Today, TikTok is making its case in court against a bill that would require it to be divested by its Chinese parent company ByteDance or else risk a nationwide ban. And joining us now is Dan Primack, Axios business editor. Dan, always good to see you. I had a question for you, Dan, just maybe start high level, because you've been obviously following the story, Dan, reporting and writing about it. I'm just interested to get your take, Dan. How strong do you believe that the U.S. government's case is that TikTok does represent, Dan, this national security risk?
So there's two different things. There's the legal argument and then the actual argument. On the legal side, I think it's pretty strong because they have a law passed by Congress and signed by President Biden. So that's pretty strong. The national security piece, the reality is we don't know, and neither does TikTok really, because when you look at these filings that the government submitted to the court for the case that opened today, about a dozen pages of it is redacted classified information. So we've never really had a particularly compelling public explanation of it, but every time you get senators or congresspeople who go into these classified briefings about TikTok, they often come out in kind of lockstep that TikTok is a national security threat.
How do you think this actually then plays out, Dan? I mean, is this the first step? We're gonna head all the way to the Supreme Court on this one?
Well, we'll definitely head to the Supreme Court because whoever loses right now, in this case in D.C. appellate court, is almost certain to appeal it to the Supreme Court. So that is almost certainly where we end up.
With the CCP, Dan, what's your gut? The Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government, would they actually ever even allow a divestment, in your opinion, forced by the U.S. government?
I don't believe they would. Now, there's some clever things in theory ByteDance could maybe do to try to assuage that. But no, I think the Chinese government has been pretty clear over the years that if it feels it is in the Chinese government or China's best interest to harm one of its homegrown tech companies, it is perfectly willing to do so. It does not have this kind of reflexive, oh, we have to protect ByteDance because it's one of our big unicorns. And ByteDance, by the way, for those who don't know, it is the most valuable privately held tech company in the world, but TikTok is not all of ByteDance. If TikTok went away, ByteDance could survive. It has kind of a version of TikTok in China and other places, and then it has other assets.
So at the end of the day, Dan, I mean, place some bets for me. Would you, if I asked you to take out your forecasting magic here, would you say, listen, I think this does end up as a nationwide ban?
Well, here's what I think. My guess, and based in part on what we heard from the judges' questions today to TikTok, they were fairly skeptical of TikTok's arguments. So I do think we could get to the point where this divestiture or ban law gets put into place. But what's important to note is the president of the United States does not have to ban it if there's not a divestiture. It gives the president the option to ban it. You've already got Donald Trump saying he would not ban TikTok, and Kamala Harris has not taken a position on this one way or the other. You could say she's part of the Biden administration that has said it would do so, but Axios reached out to her campaign yesterday and then again this morning to ask her perspective on this, and they declined to respond.
What's also interesting, Dan, you do have these bold-faced American investors, big names who are kicking the tires here, say they're interested. It's hard though to imagine ByteDance would ever part with that algorithm or be allowed to. So if they did buy TikTok, Dan, what would they be buying exactly?
Yeah, no one seems to really know, because without the algorithm, that's the special sauce, right? That's the recipe that everybody wants. You hear Steve Mnuchin and others, the former Treasury Secretary who's theoretically put together a group to buy it, say, we could do this without the algorithm, or we could maybe silo off the US piece of the algorithm. But again, this all goes back to, even if ByteDance was to sell, a piece of paper to these investors group, the Chinese government has to approve it. And this goes back to your earlier question. There's no particular reason to think that the Chinese government would be willing to do so, particularly because this isn't just ByteDance saying, you know what, for a variety of strategic reasons, we don't think we should own TikTok anymore. This is ByteDance being forced by the American government to do it, and it's hard to see China abiding by that.
Dan, always love having you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.